Welcome to Quirky French Podcast, the podcast that helps you speak more confidently, feel more focused, and be more in control of your French learning journey. Prêt? C'est parti! Salut, welcome to Quirky French Podcast. My name is Naima, and this week we're going to talk about confidence, and we're actually going to talk about exactly what you need to focus on first, right now, as we speak. But there's an infinity of things that you can do, between watching French videos on YouTube or watching movies or using language learning apps, taking classes, listening to songs. The list goes on, right? There's plenty of things that you can do. If anything, there's just too many suggestions and simply not enough hours in the day to do all of them. Wouldn't it be great if someone could help you figure things out and help you figure out what to start with so that you can make the most of your precious time? Well, don't worry, I've got you covered. And in today's episode, I'm going to help you narrow down all those options so you can really focus on what really matters at this stage and, really leverage your learning like never before. Here's the secret. You don't need to do all of them. In fact, you can safely ignore all the tips you find on the internet and really just apply the 2 tips I'm going to be sharing with you. Well, 2.5, because I'm also going to give you a little bonus tip in the end. Okay? So here it is. Focus on this and ignore everything else. Okay, first thing first. Don't focus on your skills. Listen, if you want to develop your self-confidence, you need to be clear on the fact that self-confidence is not measured by your knowledge and level of French. This is so important and so overlooked by many learners. So until you realize that, you're going to be stuck in a negative and unhealthy thinking pattern, and that's going to keep you stuck. Your knowledge of French will never make you feel good enough to make you confident. Trust me, I've been there myself, and I've worked with a lot of students who have a really good level of French and still lacked confidence. So if that notion is foreign to you, if you find it hard to process that, the fact that your level of French is not what makes you confident, I suggest that you go ahead and listen to episode 3, Step into Your Confidence, where I explain how confidence and competence are 2 very different things and why being competent in French doesn't necessarily make you confident in French. Okay, so don't focus on your skills. The French that you already know is enough. But I hear you coming. I know you're going to say things like, well, my French is really bad. Or, yeah, but you've never heard me speak before, so you don't really know what you're talking about. Or you'll say, well, I'm still kind of a beginner, so my French is obviously not strong enough. But I actually stand my point. Even if you spoke 0 word of French, I would tell you to focus on those 2 areas and not your skills. The thing is, you can get by and connect with people in French, even if your French is, just average. You might think that you need to reach a really high level of proficiency, when in fact, in most cases, average is usually more than enough. So don't focus on your skills right now. I'm not saying it's not important, and it does have its place, but it's not the priority right now. The truth is, people don't really care about your French. Only you do. When people communicate with you, they're looking to build rapport. On the most basic level, for example, if you're in a shop and you're trying to get some food, you just need to get your point across, and the person in front of you just needs to understand what the task is and what it is that you're after. And on a more personal level, people simply want to get to know you. They want to connect with you, just like I assume you want to get to know them and connect with them. They don't really care about being impressed with your French. And I hear your objections. You'll say, well, that's not true because someone has made a negative comment about my French in the past. And I know for a fact that people can be negative and they do care about my French. And to that, I'm going to say a couple of things. First of all, that comment and that experience you've had in the past actually says more about them than it says about you and your friend. And it really shows their inability to connect with you if they judge you. So don't waste energy and don't waste any of your thoughts on that and on them, because, the vast majority of people won't actually judge you. Then even if you did go through a negative experience, or if you had some negative comments in the past about your friend, and if those types of comments, lowered your confidence, then I really want to encourage you to study this podcast even more and this episode even more, because you might be tempted to focus on your language skills because of that comment, when in fact you need to focus on something else. And that leads me to my next point. Out of everything that you can potentially do to grow as a learner, if your skills are not what you need to prioritize right now, then what should you focus on instead? So here are the 2 things that you need to work on. Area of focus number 1. Do exactly what scares you. Are you scared to speak French? Well, stop avoiding conversations and go ahead and have tons of conversations. Start talking. Are you scared of making mistakes? Well, you need to let go of perfectionism and try things, even if you think you won't do very well. Are you scared you're going to freeze when you start a conversation? Well, start tons of conversations and freeze tons of times. I don't know, are you scared people are going to judge you? Well, you need to put yourself out there, talk with a lot of native speakers, even with more advanced learners, and let them judge you. You can even ask for feedback. Are you scared that you're not going to understand the other person? Well, stop hiding, start asking questions, stay present in conversations, even when it gets tough, even when you don't understand. I mean, the list goes on, and I think you're getting my point, right? Basically, whatever scares you is precisely what holds you back and controls you. And so instead of trying to avoid the experience that scares you, you need to embrace it and actually experience that discomfort, because this is really where you're going to grow. And I know you're going to say that you don't know how to do any of this, you don't know how to go about it, but you don't actually need to. You just need to go for it, even if you don't have all the keys right now. Or perhaps you're going to say that it's just way too scary and you don't think that you can do it. But let me say that the fear that you're going through right now, that's actually the real pain. This is causing real pain, physical pain and mental pain. And what's interesting is that in almost all cases, the pain caused by your fear is actually stronger than the pain you would go through if you just stopped avoiding the fear and experienced the actual situation. In other words, it won't be nearly as bad as you think. Literally, the pain that's caused by your fear is actually the real damage, not the situation. Okay? So, let's talk about area of focus number 2. Be as stupid as you can. Now, I know that this sounds weird, but believe me, this is some serious homework. We're actually so used to being judged on our intelligence, our ability to get it right, and get it right the first time even. We're constantly judged on our results, and we're rarely judged on the process that it takes us to achieve a goal. It can be really difficult to accept that sometimes we don't control everything, sometimes we don't always understand, sometimes we're slower than other people, sometimes we make mistakes. Okay, so if you're a perfectionist and if you get anxious when you speak, let me stress how important it is that you develop that skill. And it really is skill to develop, the skill of being stupid. So you really need to let go of trying to look good, trying to do well all the time. If someone is speaking to you and if you don't understand, don't smile and nod. You need to stop that. Ask questions, rephrase, double check to make sure that you understood. Find a way to express that there's something that you need to work out first. And do this, as many times as needed until things become clearer. And I really mean this. Don't cheat. Don't just say, je ne comprends pas once, and then, quickly move on or try to avoid the topic or the conversation and move on to something else. If you still don't understand after you say, je ne comprends pas, ask again. Ask questions. Hang in there and stay in that situation. Find a way. If something is difficult, if something is challenging, stop saving face and really ask for help. Say that you don't understand. Ask for advice and feedback and really learn with others. The point of this is not just so you eventually understand or get it, understand what the person says. But the point of this is really to get used to being in that uncomfortable position, to really own it and really embrace it. What actually happens when you do that is you develop confidence by being brave enough to speak up. You ask questions and you're being vulnerable. And this is a really great confidence building mindset to cultivate. Besides, the stupider you are, the smarter you actually get. Think about all those times where you just sat there, you just smiled and nodded, even though you understood nothing. Think about all the opportunities and the knowledge you missed because you were too afraid to speak up. I hope you're starting to get the idea. If you're scared that you're going to look like a fool, go ahead and look like a fool. Show people you don't get it until you do. Whatever scares you is where you need to go. Don't try and avoid it, but instead lean into it, experience it. And you can worry about your French skills and your level and your grammar and the rest of it once you're on the other side of the fear. So there you have it. Don't focus on your skill, but focus on yourself by doing the very thing that scares you and by being as stupid as you can. Allow yourself to be. What I shared with you is based on the idea that your confidence is the result of a cycle. You're willing to try scary things, so you go through that experience, and then as you go through it, you basically realize that you actually have less to fear, which in turn makes you even more willing and likely to try scary things. So it's that cycle where you just build up momentum and resistance. Now, I said I was going to give you a bonus tip. So if doing scary things is overwhelming, just know that you can start small. One thing that you can do is simply brainstorm a list of all the things, all the situations that scare you, then rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and then go ahead and put yourself in those situations, starting with level 1, and then work your way up to 10. And really do it gently and gradually. For example, you can repeat the same task, like the same level 1 situation, until it feels right before you move up the ladder. To help you do this, I've created a bonus sheet on this episode webpage, so quirkyfrench.com/podcast/episode 9, and you can download it and start focusing on your confidence right now. Well, I hope this episode was helpful, and I hope it's going to give you some ideas and show you that you can just focus on this and literally ignore everything else for now to grow your confidence. I wish you a very scary and stupid week. But yeah, a very interesting, full of experimenting week. And I will catch up with you next week. And as always, keep learning, keep growing, and keep it quirky. Allez, à la prochaine. Salut et bon week-end.